Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 35th Comic Art Fans Update. I am Bill Cox, your host, as always. So it's been a wild week. This is my fourth consecutive night of doing live streams, and I still have the energy to keep it going. I'm not going to do a fifth night, though. I'm taking Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, wait a minute. I'm not taking Sunday off. Shoot. On Sunday, I'm doing something with Anthony Snyder. He's doing one of those art cons again, and I told him that I would do about an hour with him and help him conduct some deals through this platform as well. So I'll be doing that with him on Sunday at noon. I haven't got the exact details, but it should be noon. That's when we've always done them in the past. So we'll be doing another one of those shows. So yeah, five live streams in a week. That's a lot, but it's all right. I'm hanging in there. So a few things as we've mentioned it a few times. There was the big SQL Server update on Sunday. That was a major task, and we're still wrapping up a few minor kind of tidbits and bits of things that aren't working quite right, mostly related to our crawls on a few of the dealer sites that I don't host, that I do import their data. So we're probably going to have that resolved by the end of the day tomorrow. We fixed a few things that we use that same routine for with eBay and a couple other sites, and then the dealer sites are going to probably be taken care of tomorrow. So that's really the only straggler. But I did want to show this one kind of cool stat, that just to give everybody an idea, that just putting in the new server, which happened right here, this is like it's kind of a uptime speed type of test that from a service that I use. You can see like average speed connect times from the server were about 1,200 milliseconds. And once the new server went in, that cut that time by a third. So it dropped it down to about 800. So from 1,200 to 800 connection times is pretty impressive. And kind of across the board, every dealer site that we host also saw the same level of improvement. So definitely it was a worthwhile investment. I was always nervous about making such a big investment in the hobby, but it clearly is worth it. And I can tell you that just the few things that I do on a daily basis, the sites are so much faster. And I think what that's going to allow us to do is expand certain things. As far as like the number of keywords that maybe I let premium members have for a certain function can probably double now. Whereas, I felt like I needed to limit that. So the horsepower was really dedicated to the sites and things and wasn't going out there to do these extra tidbits. And so, it's going to be interesting. Once we get this last bit done, I'll be doing a lot more experimenting with the site. And I think what we can really do with things now that this great new server is in place. If you watched the Dueling Dealers show last night, that was fantastic. We set records across the board. Both dealers sold the most they've ever sold, and we hit just over $36,000 in sales. So it was a lot of fun, and that was the first time I actually felt relaxed. So if anybody watches that show, that was the first time where I wasn't stressed out from beginning to end. And getting rid of the Nightbot, not having auctions, was a big help. So I think that went a long way to just making the show go so much smoother. And thank you for everybody for hanging in there while we kind of figured things out. I think we're in a good spot with that show now. And good evening, everybody. I see Marilyn. Thank you. I'm glad. I saw the picture of your dogs on Facebook watching the show last night. That was awesome. And let's see, Jason. If you have a problem, you just send me an email on that, and I can look into it. I haven't had any issues with the site search, but it could, you got to send me the details, and then I can try to. If I can get the same results, I can certainly look into it. And let's see. Sean is asking me if I'm only using YouTube for live auctions. Why not? As far as the Dueling Dealer show, the reason we stopped going on Facebook was just the timing was very different. Facebook is about 15 seconds behind the live stream, and we didn't know that. And YouTube is more or less about 4 or 5 seconds behind the live stream. So we just stopped the stream going to Facebook for that very reason, because it was very problematic with the auctions. And I may turn it back on to Facebook just because, but we would always give you the caveat that you're 15 seconds behind. If you were really there to buy artwork, Facebook is not the place or the platform to be on to watch the show to make a claim, because you are that far delayed. And when we were doing the experiments with the Nightbot, that's how we found out that it was so far behind. And so I really would rather not, because I want to make sure everybody has a good experience. And you're not seeing the same things that we are if you're on Facebook. You see, even when I'm pulling up a YouTube comment, you're seeing it 10 seconds later than I saw it. So at the end of the day, I just want it to be a good experience for everybody. And I know that not having it on Facebook is limiting. So we will, I considered it, but I would always probably state at the beginning, don't be there if you really want to buy any artwork, because in most cases you won't get it. So, but it's something we'll talk about, and I may change that, that position before the next show, because I do think we did hit our high watermark with the number of viewers live on that show, just being on YouTube, at 210 last night, and that was the same number we hit on the I think the 5th show, which was our high watermark before that. So people definitely are gravitating over to YouTube, and I'm sure if we turned on Facebook, we'd be more at like 280, but we'll see. Again, it'll be something I take into consideration. My mailbag for this week, I already opened it, but Anthony Snyder did send me the Rob Liefeld fake that he had shot up a couple weeks ago, so that'll go on the wall. I didn't want to open it on screen because I knew what it was. And outside of that, the only other thing I wanted to show you guys was, and this is something I wasn't even aware of because I don't use YouTube that often, but it's something that I've actually since been doing with all the sites that I follow. There's this, when you subscribe to a channel, there's this bell here, and if you click on it and you set the notifications to all, then you'll actually get notified every time we go online. It's probably a lot easier to do that than to go in and try to remind yourself or setting a reminder for a future show. So I would highly recommend doing that. I've done it on a few of the channels that I follow, and it's a lot better than just trying to follow the links on a CAF email or trying to find the live link. That's the best way, because it'll ping you on your phone. It'll give you a desktop notification, and I found it to be a lot easier for myself as well. So with all that out of the way, let me get on to the CAF update so I can get the interview with Simon K on the way. Let me go into the dealer stats. Let me pull that over here. All right, so it would seem like it was a bad week, right? The comic art dealers who only sold $396,000 this week, but that's actually really good. But it's a huge drop from the week before, and really the 2 weeks prior to that, where both sales were also almost at $600,000. But it's still an incredible week, and it's continuing this huge trend of so much buying going on with the comic art dealers. So still very impressive, but the money was spread around a lot. I think we had 400 transactions in the set that brought us to that figure. And so let me run through the top sales for the week of March 1st through the 7th. So first up is going to be, this piece was by Gil Kane and Mike Esposito. It was sold by Will's Comic Art page, the Comic Art Live Will Gabrielle. This was $35,000. It's the cover to Captain America 189 from 1975. Next up is this pinup by John Beatty and Mike Zeck, of course, sold by Albert Moy for the price of $25,000 as an asking price, as with all dealer sales. And another sale from Albert. This is by Sam Keith. Marvel Comics Presents 92 cover at $25,000 as the asking price. That might be a steal nowadays, right? After the last Sam Keith cover sold from Marvel Comics Presents for the mid-30s. This is a King in Black issue 4 cover. The artist is Ryan Stegman and was sold by Felix Comic Art, and the price was $24,000. And the last two, this is a Lady Death Odyssey #2 cover. The artist, of course, is Stephen Hughes. This was sold by Glenn Brunswick and Panel Page Art for the asking price of $12,000. And finally, this was sold by Tatiana, TD Art Gallery. Asking price $10,000. It's Gabrielle Delato. It's Wolverine's Wolverine #1 cover, or Wolverine's #1 cover. Sorry about that. Plural. And so there you have that. Now, the auction sales were about the same. The total sales were just under $300,000, and from the prior week, it would have at $271,000. We will show you 3 results from eBay and then 3 results from Heritage in the set. First up is this Kurt Swan Adventure Comics page. It's from issue 368, page 9, from 1968, my birth year. The price on this one was $6,250. Next up is a rather blurry, unfortunately, Dick Giordano, Lois Lane #110 cover. This sold for $5,299.99. And finally was this Greg Land, Jay Leistine, sorry, butchering names this evening. Symbiote Spider-Man #3, page 17. This one sold for just under $5,000. 3 Heritage results. This first one is a Marvel Premier number 10 page, sold for $7,200. Artists were Frank Bruner and Neil Adams. Next up is a cover to Wilbur 44, a title that most people don't know, I'm sure. This is from 1952. The artist is Bob Montana, and it sold for $5,280. And finally, this is it's Wally Wood. These are some monster sketches from the 60s and 70s. I know that Heritage had several painted pieces in one of their last signature auctions a few months back. This particular piece sold for $4,320. I think the painted pieces were closer to $20,000, if I'm not mistaken. They were several sets of those with several headshots on them, and were considerably more. And right, so let me get on to my picks for the week, and then we will be on to our guest this evening. So this is a John Romita Jr. cover, and it's from Daredevil Man Without Fear, book 3. This is in the collection of our friend Miggs, and writer on that book, of course, Frank Miller. This is a Amazing Spider-Man 319 splash. This is in the collection of Brian Ketterer, and the artist, of course, is Todd McFarlane. Love the lettering on that one. This one is from the collection of my good friend Larry Wilson, past guest on the show. This is the Avengers 15 cover, page 7. Artists are Don Heck and Mike Esposito with Jack Kirby layouts. And this is a fantastic Joe Jusko piece. This is in the collection of Dino Mauricio. Got Cap, Wolverine, Thing, and Spider-Man. Marvel Comics Guide to New York City. It's from. Next up is this P. Craig Russell piece in the collection of Joshua Tan, and Joshua's got one heck of a collection. This is from the Norse Mythology number 4 cover. And it's a Kirby Everett Thor 175 page in the collection of Mark Levy. Mark was on the show last night and picked up a really nice piece as well. And this is a blurry one, unfortunately, not a premium member, so the art is a little bit smaller. This is, of course, Mark Silvestri and Dan Green. The owner of this art is Wolvie Fan, and this is from Wolverine number 41, the cover. And next up is this piece in the collection of Steve D., my good buddy. It's by Mike Vosberg and Steve Lealoa, Marvel Team Up 81 page. This one is in the collection of David I. M. Fan, and it's Romita Jr. and Al Williamson from Daredevil 270. And this is in the collection of Matches Malone, Lee Bermejo, and it is from Detective Comics, the cover to 1019. And this is a beautiful Trad Moore piece, collection of J.H. This is from the New World number 2, page 9. Love Trad's work. I'm sure most of you guys do as well. Just can't afford it. And next up is a cover by Nick Cardy in the collection of Will K. This is Teen Titans 20. Will had a nice story to go along with this piece. And this is a double-page spread from 2001. It's in the collection of L.B. Jeffries, Jack Kirby, and Mike Royer. I'd love to see this one in person. And finally, this is a little blurry as well, but I really like the piece. This is an Ultron splash page, collection of JN80. Brian Hitch and Paul Neary are the artists. And there you have it. Those are my picks for the week. And as always, at least on YouTube, there is a link that takes you to a page on CAF where I consolidate all these pieces of artwork that I've talked about, whether it's the dealer sales or the featured artwork. So you can always click on any of those links and see these pieces in person on CAF for yourself. So without further ado, let me bring in my guests this evening. So we got Simon K here, and he is going to be joined by Ruben DaCollector and Kahlil Giron. How are you doing, everybody?
Hey, guys.
Great. Thanks.
Hey, comic art fans. All right. I only have a Doom t-shirt on tonight, unfortunately.
That says comic fans.
I know, but yeah, it's
missing the art.
Hold on. There.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
In the right lighting, those dark t-shirts.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I got one of those.
I bought 3 of them though, Bill. Just so you know.
Well, that's
I appreciate So Simon.
Wait.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What? Oh, Kahlil. Okay.
Simon, he's the guest of honor tonight. That's why his head is the biggest one, right? We
Thank you.
established that. So go ahead.
So
No,
right, well,
yeah.
welcome to the show, Simon, and welcome to original comic art collecting, because I know you're a new collector, and probably the as far as people that we've ever had on the show, probably you've collected for the least amount of time. So that was why when Ruben suggested it and Kahlil chimed in and thought it was a good idea, I was like, yeah, this would be great. And I can tell you, we've had a lot of requests for newer people to the hobby just to get their perspective, since many of us have been collecting for over 20 years or even longer. And so I'm really curious what your view of the hobby is kind of coming into it just in the last couple of years. And, what kind of challenges have you faced once you started, collecting original art?
Yeah. I haven't even been collecting for years. I've just been collecting since last June, maybe.
Okay.
So less than a year. And I just was lucky enough to meet these two gentlemen below me, or wherever they are in the square, on CAF, and they kind of helped me figure things out. But generally speaking, I guess it's like almost any collecting medium or anything. When you're first jumping into, you're unsure where to start or what to look for. Like I've collected comics my whole life, and that's the background I come from, comic books. So I consider myself pretty well versed in like comic books, like what's worth something, what's not worth something. I see on sales people trying to sell stuff or something that's too much money that's really worth like pennies or whatever. So you have that kind of knowledge, but going into something totally brand new like I did with art, I had no idea initially what to look for or what something was worth. I bought one of my first pieces from Ruben, a Titans page with Nightwing and Flash, in part just because I like the characters. I hadn't yet come to think that what kind of pages, well, this is a longer conversation that we'll have eventually, I'm sure, but what kind of pages I should be looking at in terms of like investment maybe, or what artists garner more value to them. I was like, oh, that looks interesting, that looks fun, I'll just get that. There's the adage to collect what you like, and that's how I started off, collecting what I like. But along the way, I think, as with most collectors, you start to see that maybe I can get more bang for my buck if I essentially invest a little bit, because art is not inexpensive, it's expensive. So if you're going to collect, you might as well get something that you like that's also worth collecting. So that's been my thought process kind of going forward. I try not to base my purchases on nostalgia, because that's a dangerous road to go down. I see people trying to do that, trying to get pieces of their childhood, like a Todd McFarlane piece or something like that, but you get upwards of $50,000, $100,000 pieces if you try to do that. But there are smaller pieces that I think are worthwhile that are less expensive. So yeah.
Well, see, I didn't realize that it was less than a year. I thought you had like a year and a half. So I should have done my research before we started talking.
Oh, that's fine.
So what prompted you to get into original art collecting in the first place? So I mean that, and when you decided to do it, I mean, how long before you actually picked up your first piece?
So I was at a comic book store with my partner, and we know the owner. And one day, the owner's name is Jack. He decided to just show us what he had. Just said, "Hey, I picked up some art." I'm like, "Comic art? What do you mean?" He pulled out this folder of stuff. This was, again, just last summer. And you just start flipping through pages of all this stuff. And I was just stunned. I was like, whoa. And you could actually have something that, it was just awesome. Because for me, as long as I was going like conventions and everything, I knew about maybe art in my peripheral, but I never actually thought it was like art in the sense. I thought maybe it was like reprints or kind of like posters or something like that. For whatever reason, I never equated that. It was just like, actually, these were the original pages or covers. But I was informed about that. I was like, there's a step above comic books. And I always thought comic books was like the end-all, be-all of this hobby that we're in. But when I learned that that's kind of just not much at all to it, that art is the big thing, I was like, I have to be a part of this. So after seeing these pages of art, I'm like, almost immediately after I went online, I literally Googled how to collect comic art. Because I had no idea. One has no idea going into this for the first time. I guess people, when they collect comic books for the first time, they do something similar, and it's easy to kind of poke fun and laugh. And I've done that myself. People are like, how do I collect comics? I'm like, oh, just pick up a comic, you'll figure it out. But when you're actually starting somewhere new, then you're faced with the reality that I have no idea what to do, so I need some guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So did you buy a piece of art that when you saw it the first time?
Yeah, the first two things I bought were the piece from Ruben and then a Spider-Man piece on eBay, a Bagley piece. I think I bought the Bagley piece first, but Ruben's piece came in first. So it's like first appearance is what came first, like Hulk 180, Hulk 181, Wolverine. But yeah, those were my first two. And I started with the Bagley piece because I wanted something that, from an artist that I love. I love Mark Bagley. I love his Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a great splash from Amazing Spider-Man 365, I want to say. I know we have the page later. It was a great splash of Silver Sable's Wild Pack, and the bottom there's Venom and Spidey. And I thought, that's a great way to start a collection.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because from the little that I had gleaned in the last 2 days, probably of looking online, collecting art, not only did I happen upon some good art, but I happened upon some good art that I like. Yeah.
No, that's a good start, definitely. So that's how you met Ruben, by buying some artwork from him.
Nice. Yes. Two things.
I don't know how to do it without interrupting.
That's right. Two things. Tommy, Simon is in the Boston, Massachusetts area. And ML, Simon has said, let's get you one in a year and see how your perspective may have changed. So I don't think it's a bad idea, Bill. So go ahead.
I agree.
Look at the
I'm going to put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Check out Jason. Do you think he will be all bitter and bash the dealers in a year? Come on, man. Give the guy a chance.
Not when there's a dealer on the screen with him. That's when we can.
Yeah.
I'm more
truth be told, with all the dealers that I've encountered, I've had nothing but wonderful exchanges with them. I treat them like I would anyone else. Like when I go to a comic book show or whatever, I talk to the vendors, form a dialogue back and forth. So over the years, I go to a lot of conventions. I see the same guys, and they remember me and everything. And similar to, I guess now, like I go to all the sites that you guys go to look for art. And whenever you go see the Marvel previews or DC previews, like, oh, I got to have that. Or when a new comic comes out, you go through the page, like, oh, I got to have that. And there's all the people who talk to you about that stuff. So I've done the same thing, but having a discourse between them, a dialogue, and just being kindly, it seems to go a long way. And I've had nothing but good experiences with everyone I've talked to.
That's good.
Yeah, no, that's, by and large, I can't say that I have too many bad experiences with dealers as well. I mean, dealers do get a bad, reputation for varying reasons, and some of it is very well deserved. Not with you, Ruben, not necessarily. You can chime in.
Just trying to be a little more proactive with the comment answering if I can.
That's a good idea, man. That's a good idea. Yeah.
And that was an answer to this question right there. Where is Kahlil? Yes.
Yeah, Arizona.
Exactly. Much warmer there than when we are, and Boston.
Oh,
but,
it's
70 degrees here today.
Beautiful here.
But that is true. We actually had 4 nice days of mid 60s, but it's going back down to the low 30s for the rest of the weekend. So, we never catch a break here in Ohio. I would have rather had it on the weekend when I'm not stuck behind my desk, but that's how it goes. So how did Simon? How did you and Kahlil meet then?
I guess just through CAF.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact details, but I guess I must have seen something that he had or commented on a page of his. And he responded, and we just started talking back and forth. Same with Ruben.
Well, I have it in my journal here, Bill. Let me get my diary. Yeah, man. We connected like through just I think similar taste for some of the '90s stuff, and you've bought a few pieces from me, right? So I think after that, it was kind of like you would just check in, right, with other things you were considering. It was kind of simple as that.
Oh, there I am. Yeah, with Ruben also. I think I just didn't communicate with Ruben directly at first. I think I was just looking for something like Nightwing, like, because I love Nightwing. And I think somehow that, or I don't know if I'm remembering this right.
Actually, I did a little research before the show, went into our old messages from June, and I can say that you had sent me a message saying that, in the last 24 hours, I decided to jump into the original art hobby. And then you ordered a couple of pages from me. And then from that day for the next 2 months, you and I, if you remember, we pretty much chatted every day through the CAF system, long-ass emails, back and forth. I tried to give you as much help and information as I could. And that's kind of how we became immediate friends because of that,
Yep.
Yeah. I gotta get a marker. Sorry.
You've got a fan club out there tonight, Kahlil. Maybe you should start hosting this show.
Maybe. Yeah.
Is that your wife, Kahlil? Is that your wife?
Hey, I'll take that eye candy comment. I'm not just here for that, but
see, I knew I should have worn my contacts tonight.
Yeah, y'all missed that, man. I'm blind as a bat, I guess, but I almost switched to my glasses because these other 4 gents tonight. But I'll be the odd man. Yeah. Sorry, Simon.
No worries. So that's apparently how I started talking with Ruben, and then with Kahlil, it was very similar. We just started a dialogue and talk almost all the time, really, several times a week, if not more. He sold me a couple pages that I loved. Some of my favorite covers that I have by Bagley, Thunderbolts, and a couple other things. Spider-Man pages, and even now we talk several times a week, if not all the time. Ruben, we talk to him several times a week.
And as far as those conversations, I start all of them, right, Simon? I'm the one who usually starts them up, right?
Of course, yeah. I have nothing to ask you about ever, or questions to. I don't seek your insight on anything whatsoever.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
So okay. So now you've only been collecting since June. You've only been collecting during COVID. So so have you found that the whole experience is very limiting because you're doing everything online? I mean, because you haven't had that experience of going to a show or anything like that to really meet collectors in person or talk to dealers face to face or artists too. So
right now this has been the only way I've had of going about collecting art. I don't know anything else. I mean, I love going to conventions. For the past 10 years before COVID hit, I went to San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, the C2E2. But in all that time, I never once looked for art. And I kind of regret that now. But yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to all this COVID stuff being over and for shows to open up again, because I really want to experience what it's like to actually go to a show to actively look for art instead of looking for comics. So that's how I've always stressed going to conventions, looking for comics for the next big comic book, whatever. But art now is my main focus.
Well, it's definitely a different experience, that's for sure. When you go to San Diego and you're there for the art and not the comics and the entertainment, you really feel like you're like this small subset of collectors, and that like the majority of the people in that hall don't have any the similar interests to you at all. So it's nice when you can get around a group of friends who are all interested in art, and you really do. You feel like an island unto yourselves because everybody that's around you doesn't care. They're there for the exclusive toy or to get somebody's signature, and honestly, it's a great feeling because you just feel like you're there for something that's very unique, and you're hanging out with like-minded people, and that's one of the things that I've always loved about the hobby is just getting to hang out with the people who find art as exciting as I do, and I wish more people got turned on to it, but that's the nice thing about it is that it is it's like a club, right, guys? I mean, would you agree, Kahlil?
Well, so what I would say is like absolutely right. I'm a little bummed I'm missing some of this year. Simon, in terms of buying art at cons, it's so I'm not sure. I'm curious to see how things may change or not. But you can go up, talk to pencilers, inkers, dealers, and they've got it all right there, right? So you're flipping through the portfolio, and there's a difference between seeing it right there and looking online, right? And cash is king when you go to shows, right? So there's a little bit of a, it's fun to kind of talk about the pieces and what you may or may not be able to do to buy it right then and there. But I'm going to miss Heroes, and I'm going to miss Emerald City. So I'll just tout those. I love cons, but those are the two that, to your point, Bill, right? Just being there for the artists and being able to walk up and talk to my exec for half an hour because there's only 5 people there, in his line at any given point. Or Chris Priest, he invited me to sit down and talk with him for an hour and sit behind his booth. So I agree, Bill. Sorry, I'm not trying to,
No. I
100%.
completely agree. I've never been to Emerald City, but the Heroes Con was always my favorite. I haven't been there in about 10 years, but it's a fantastic show.
They got these artists out with so many guys there that it's just awesome because most people aren't there for that. And for most of the artists, big name to smaller name, I guess you can go up and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess my thoughts about that also with that Artist Alley. So I've talked to Ruben about this, probably Kahlil. The steps of collecting, as it were, for this hobby. First, you get introduced to the comic books. So you collect comic books, and then you discover the artists and their work. So you kind of get commissions, which is what I did for a number of years after that. And now, the art. But the whole time I was going to the Artist Alley, I never once equated that the folders they had with this original art was like original art. It just never clicked in my head for some reason. Like these were like pages of comics that I love. I kind of wish that I had been more in tune with that.
Right. Well, it takes time. I was a comic book collector for 25, 30 years before I got turned on original art. Really, you just it just happens one day. You luck out. You like you said, you were at a show at a store and they showed it to you. For me, I completed a run of books at Wizard World Chicago and had extra money to burn and was just walking around and I stumbled upon Tom Fleming and bought some artwork from him for the first time and then I was hooked ever since. So and the Baltimore show is a good show too. I know that might be a closer one. I don't know when that they probably won't. Well, you can't say they won't have a show this year. You never know. It's in the fall, but that's a nice show too.
Yeah.
Hey Simon, let me ask you a question, right? So in terms of this last whatever it's been 7 or 8 months, what has been I guess the biggest hurdle I guess for you in terms of getting something you want, learning about the hobby, whatever it is? Has there been any kind of particular challenge that's kind of risen to the top?
I guess knowing exactly where to look for certain things. Like when I first was introduced to CAF, the first couple of weeks I just looked obsessively through whatever. Like I would just go in the search engine because to look for certain characters that I like to see if I can find any pages, like Cable or X-Men, Spider-Man. Or Spider-Man Mark Bagley. And that was the hardest part because some of it is just not there and some collectors just have it stored away or some of the pieces are just in limbo somewhere in the world. So there's that. But then the new stuff, again, this is all a learning process for everyone who starts off with anything. So like for a new page of art that just came on the market, where do you go to look for that? Who do you talk to? You kind of have to just not necessarily figure it out on yourself, but you kind of have to figure it out for yourself. Like another, for example, we'll see it later, my Gary Frank Action Comics page or cover. Thank you. I saw that in the previews and I loved it. And then I had to go through the process of trying to figure out how do I get that page? Who do I contact? Because Gary Frank, he doesn't have much of a web presence necessarily. He's on Twitter, but that's about it. And he doesn't seem to tweet too much necessarily. So just try and find out where to get stuff and get them for good prices, because also not knowing what something's worth is a hurdle. because you can pay or spend too much on something that's not worth as much as what you paid for it. Similar to comics, I guess. So you don't know what you're doing. Something like, hey, this is a $100 book. When it's a week or two later, it's a $10 book, I guess. So yeah, it's just been a learning process every day. Even now, I'm still trying to figure out how to do things because I see people in various like art forums, or whatever, who've been collecting for a bit longer than I have, a couple of years maybe. They're posting things like first appearances of various characters. I'm like, how are you guys getting these first appearances? Like all these great characters from modern characters, I should say. Actually, emphasize, not like Wolverine or something.
Miles
like
Morales.
Star Wars. Yeah, Miles Morales. Or Miles Morales key covers.
That was what I was thinking.
How are you guys finding this stuff? Like, I don't know how they're finding this stuff. Like later on down the road, like today, how are you finding like a Miles Morales key cover or page that I don't see it on Comic League, I don't see it on Heritage, I don't see it being sold on CAF. So how are they getting it? That's something I'm still dealing with today.
Right. Well, I mean, I can tell you that I know that there are several collectors that go after first appearances, whether they're in the modern era or, silver, bronze age, whatnot. And the thing is, the dealers, you have to put your feelers out with the dealers as well, because, from the guys that I talk to, they know. I mean, literally, I can tell you, I was over at Berkey's house. He knows somebody who collects first appearances, and he's like, I know just the person to show this artwork to. So he's not even going to put it on his site. He's gonna offer it up to this person who he knows collects for
Jordan.
So I've been around for hearing those kind of conversations, and so that's what happens. So it's great to network with the collectors, but at the same time, it is good to let the dealers know what you're looking for, and that you're a player, for these types of pieces, because it does help the dealers. Trust me, they'd rather not have to scan and upload it to their site. If they can just send you a pic or the scan that they got for the artwork from the trade or the purchase that they got and send it to you and say you want it, and they would much rather do that than go through the whole process of having to sell it and potentially negotiate. And so yeah, it's very wise to get to know the dealers and to just get your name out there that way too.
No, like I have a webpage with a bunch of maybe like 10 or 12 tabs open every day of like all the major dealer sites, like Rumita Mag, Cadence.com, Felix, everyone. And I just refresh every day, sometimes multiple times a day, just to see what's there. And that's how I do it. Or I guess, again, with the Gary Frank page, you just look around and dig and hopefully find someone who's connected to that person. Yeah.
That is true.
Can I just quickly address a couple of comments?
Yeah, sure.
And just before you say that, we all can't be human, right, guides like Ruben is over here, who kind of has all that background knowledge. So the fact that you leverage him, me, I guess, and whoever else, it's just all about that connection, man. Go ahead, Ruben.
Yeah.
I just wanted to address a comment from my other new friend I just recently met, Brian Hart, who says, Simon, I started within the last year as well. After being a lifelong comic guy, you're not alone. And there's, more and more new guys come into and gals come into the hobby every year. I mean, it keeps growing and growing. So you're definitely not alone,
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, there was.
I have to see your community. Yeah.
No, it's true. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that CAF gets more new users to it than it gets regular visitors. I mean, on any given day, not all of them are creating accounts, of course, but there's a lot of interest in the hobby, that's for sure. And more so since COVID than before that. I mean, we've seen a large uptick in registrations in the last 10 months versus the 2 years prior to that, for instance. And so no, people are kind of catching on that this is pretty cool. And what you're doing is exactly what you need to do. Networking and making friends in the hobby is the best way to find artwork and to have people to bounce ideas off of. Is this piece too much? Or, do you think I should wait and pass on it for something else, because there will be another piece 3 or 4 months down the road. Because sometimes, you'll show something to Kahlil and he'll be like, you're not going to see that piece again for another 2 years. You might as well go for it. But somebody who's been in the hobby for a long time can tell you that. And so, making friends is the absolute, you're on the right path that way. Yeah. And having Ruben, who's a dealer, has been around a long time. He has and as a collector too. So he's got a depth of knowledge that you should just mine all the time.
Yeah. Right, I trust me, Ruben and I have had many, many long conversations. If anyone's curious, they're here because I consider them my mentors, my art mentors, truly. I consider them my friends, but I also consider them my mentors. They have really guided me and helped me greatly in this. I would still be struggling a lot more if not for them. I bounce off ideas with them all the time. Whenever, just the last Comic League auction, I sent Ruben a ton of pieces that I was interested in. I'm like, what do you think? Are these worth my time? I don't know necessarily the prices are going to be too high for these or not. I need your advice. And I'll respond to all of them. Same with Kahlil. I'll show him a page or a cover or whatever. I'm like, what do you think? Is this worth it? And he'll respond. And it's good to have that. And I hope that everyone has that in terms of this. But this is a wonderful community, as I'm discovering. It's also a very small community, but in a good way, I think.
Right. No, I'm envious of the new collectors today. I mean, when I started collecting 20 years ago, there wasn't anything like that. There was no Facebook, there was no CAF, and that was why I built CAF, because I felt like if I build a site, everybody's going to have to get to know me, and that would be my gateway to making friends, because I really didn't know where to get started other than the Comic Art L and a few other mailing lists that were out there. There wasn't much, and that was the only thing I could think to do. And we had the ability to do it, but that was really what got it started. Was just I'm like, I gotta get to know people, because it just seemed impossible back then. Ruben, you know what it was like 20 years ago. It was so difficult, and it always felt like there were these groups of collectors that kind of bought and sold and traded amongst themselves. And how did you become part of that network? It seemed really daunting. That's like the dark ages of comic art collecting.
I remember the sort of fun part of, if you want to call it community back then, was when we'd be bidding on eBay against each other. And, all of us sort of remember that we used to bid. We used to have the same sort of 2 or 3 guys bidding against us for the same material. And then, back in those days, since they showed the emails or the names, we could all sort of contact each other. And that's how most of us kind of started emailing each other, and we became kind of friends that way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there wasn't much. That's for sure, though. So, go ahead.
There's a good question here, I think, from my good buddy James Siegel here, who I was on with prior to this. And yes, James, we did have a drink with Ryan Stegman at a con at some point. So his question is, what piece did you feel the most sense of accomplishment in when you were finally able to get it to this point?
Probably some of my cable covers that I have that we're going to be talking about later. So I'll save that for that. But usually whenever I can find a really good Mark Bagley Spider-Man piece or New Warriors piece or anything really Mark Bagley, I love his stuff. I'm especially looking, I don't have this page necessarily on our discussion tonight, I don't think, but Onslaught in the 90s, the Onslaught event. I love that series, the mini event or whatever. And I love Kubert, both the Kuberts, but especially Andy Kubert, and his art on that. And I don't really have much art of that run. I think I have one page which features X-Men and Onslaught together, which I think is awesome.
It's a nice one,
yeah, so I was really happy to get that. Really, everything that I've gotten, I'm really happy I have. I find a sense of accomplishment in getting all of the stuff that I've gotten. I mean, obviously there's more stuff out there, and there's bigger pieces that I want. And one day, hopefully I'll get to there. But for example, my first Jim Lee page that I got maybe half a year ago from his Justice League run on the New 52, I was really excited to get that. I never had a Jim Lee piece, and he's one of my favorite modern artists, featuring Batman and Green Lantern. I love both characters. So I was like, I won this. That's awesome. I have a Jim Lee page because you see like Jim Lee like X-Men pages, like even the last Comic Link thing, the Wolverine page went for $40-something thousand. And that's a lot of money to put out for a page. So to get something that I thought was really high value for not $40,000, that made me really satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those Jim Lee pages have been undervalued for a little while. I think they're going to get harder and harder to pick up on X-Men.
See, that's the thing, Bill. As a newbie, I feel like I'm seeing this rise in Jim Lee prices. So that's all I know of Jim Lee prices. I don't see how maybe before they weren't as astronomically priced. This is all I know of Jim Lee
good point.
Pages and arts.
Right.
That's a good point, though, Simon. Like when you start, right? So, and Ruben, you can speak to this too, right? Like it's interesting how our perspectives are different in that regard, right? So there's today's market value, which I think is right paramount when you're thinking about this stuff. But then I can't help at times thinking about, and I started around 2010, 11, and it's still that feels like the dark ages, like you know what I mean? And I can't imagine when it comes to 90s, 80s, and people who were doing it at that time. So it's interesting how that can inform, right, your outlook. You only know what you know at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find also that a big driving force right now, like with comic books, is speculation. I don't know if this has been, again, since I'm relatively new, I don't know if this has been in the hobby for a while, but I know it has with comic books, but especially in the past few years with like Marvel movies and even some Disney movies now, people are buying certain pages of art, as I've discussed with like Ruben and Kahlil, because they feel like these characters could appear in the next MCU movie, so that's going to drive up the prices of that. Same with the comics. They're looking for first appearances because that's going to be, like, again, with the last Comic Lake, the Silk cover by Humberto Ramos. First cover appearance of Silk. She might be in a movie later down the road, maybe, possibly. But people are banking on that. If you go on eBay, I mean, 9/8s are selling for a little bit of money relative to comic art. But I didn't expect for it to go for $64,000, whatever it was. So I feel like there's a degree of speculation now that's driving up prices. But I could be wrong. I don't know.
There's a lot of people with a lot of money, that's for sure. You know, but you know, in the auctions, it always takes two. You know, all you need is two people that really want it at the, you know, to drive a price up to something that we might both feel is unrealistic. But no, I think there's speculation in the hobby without question, and at the rate the prices have been increasing the last 12 months, I think that when for any purchase of any sizable amount, and what, you know, everybody's got a different amount that would be their sizable amount, you always have to consider the fact, you know, is it going to still be worth that, you know, a year from now? You know, would I be able to get my money out of this or trade value out of it, and what I'm going to pay? You know, especially when you're paying $2,500 for a page or $10,000 for a page, I could never go into something and not be questioning that today. Whereas when I was new in collecting, I really didn't think too much about it. I just wanted to buy, and I wasn't really concerned about the future value of it. It wasn't something that was, you know, at the forefront of my thought process. I just wanted to own art. But today I can't think like that at all. You can't run around and just buy anything you want.
Ruben's been getting a lot of praise here, just so you know, guys.
I swear to God, I didn't tell these people to do that. I just want to.
Well,
I feel obligated. I need to answer everyone. You know.
I mention it because I'm like, there's so much of it that I think you might have.
I'm like, oh
I don't know, but like,
what's up with all the compliments? I'm like, oh my God, okay. I feel like I need to reply.
No, that's
Thanks,
great.
everybody. Thank you. That's
great.
So kind, everybody. Wow.
Well, it's funny, Bill, you mentioned that, right? Because I'm the same way. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, right? So I've got this long-term kind of picture when it comes to this stuff. And Simon, you can speak to it, but you know, I've had these situations where we've kind of messaged and kind of said, you know, yeah, go, or you know, think twice. I know you're ready and you're rearing to go on this stuff, but you know, there's a longer term kind of thought when you mentioned like what's the availability? When can you see something from this artist again? What's the title? Do you love it? Or are you going to be okay moving it in a year? They're just all these kind of filters, right? And I think that's something that I think all of us, you know, kind of establish on our own as we're kind of going through it.
Yeah. Nostalgia, I don't try not to base my purchases on that. It's speculation. I try not to base my purchases on that either.
But hold on, Simon. That's not altogether true, though, right? That's not altogether true because the like stuff like, for example, the cable stuff. I mean, that is based on nostalgia, right?
Well, no. So my love of cable. Okay, so my love of cable is nothing that I've had since I was a child or anything like Spider-Man. Spider-Man I've loved since I was a kid and everything. Cable, I recently started reading this stuff maybe a couple years ago. But it's the art also. I just love Ian Churchill's art. It really just speaks to me. But there are a couple of cable pages that I just love and have always thought were amazing. So I wouldn't necessarily say, well, that's nostalgia-driven.
Okay, so you're saying that the cable stuff that you've been buying, it's not because you had read them as a kid?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Then it's my mistake. I thought that was nostalgia.
I'm there with you, Ruben. Right? I'm there with you.
Yeah. Cable, which is a character that I feel I just love him. I just love his design. He's drawn by Ian Churchill. Like some artists who draw Cable, that doesn't do anything for me. But the way like Ian Churchill drew him, that really stuck out for me, and it still does. And there's a couple issues of Cable that I love in particular. Two covers of which we'll see tonight, probably. Those two books are two of my favorite Cable covers or books. And so that's why I went for those specifically. Like I see other Cable covers go on sale or auction or whatever. I'm like, I don't need those because I don't like those stories necessarily or the art or whatever. But yeah, when I got into the
stand corrected. Sorry.
No, when I got into the hobby, when I started collecting art, there were very few things I specifically had in my mind. Like I want to go after that specifically, and those Cable covers were very much like when I realized that those are things that one can purchase and have in one's hand. I'm like, those are things that I want, so I actively sought them out.
Yeah. Now, did you buy them from a rep or did you get them from a?
I won them. The Cable covers that I have, I won from Comic Link.
Okay.
Both times.
Yeah. I remember. I mean, because I'm a big X-Men collector, and I remember that Spencer Beck used to have 20 of those, and it was like you couldn't even move them at $300 to $500 for the longest time. And if only you were around about 15, 16 years ago, you would have had your pick of the ones because I'd always go back to the site and look at them, and I picked up different things. I never bought because I didn't read that book a lot. So, but yeah, back in the day,
I got some salt here, Bill. I got some salt ready. Let me, yeah.
No, I know, but it's just when I was looking at the artwork that you had sent, that was just I saw those and I'm like, wow, I remember back in the day when. It was just there was just so much of it, and no one was buying it. That's why I was curious if maybe you had got if they were still there because they were there for a while. When I was
but also I went after those pages because they also contain X-Man, Nate Gray, who's also a favorite character of mine too. So having them both there on the cover on these covers, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah,
also similar. Oh, go on, Kahlil.
No, I was gonna say David's son is on, and you've probably seen him on the CAF. He's a huge Cable guy, so he's giving you some props there. Yeah, he's right there with you.
I saw that, but yeah, similar like with Cable, X-Man. I'm relatively new to X-Man, to Nate Gray. I've only been reading some of his stuff for the past couple of years, but just something about his character, his design, everything just appeals to me aesthetically. So that's just art that I would want. And I'll talk about this more when we talk about. Go on.
When it comes to Cable, is it what are those the issues that pop to mind? Because for most people, it's Rob Liefeld, right? And the new later New Mutants issues, then into X-Force, right? Yeah,
there are 4 covers to Cable that I want. 2 of which I have. 2 of which are on CAF right now, but are locked away in people's secret bunkers. So I have 31. I have 30 and 31. And I want, for anyone listening out there who's willing to one day part with their Cable covers, 34 and 35, the Onslaught tie-ins. I love those covers because in part I love those stories, which again, I only read a couple years ago for the first time, but they're awesome. Cable fights Apocalypse on one of the cover, and I forget the other one, but I remember it's just great. And how can you not love that? One day they'll be mine. Hopefully.
You gotta have goals, man.
That's right. Jason, I would say when you email that dealer, your emails have to go back to 1995 and then make their way back up to the present. So that's why they take so long. It's actually not the delay in replying; it's the time to get those emails to them. So
you sound like Wayne Campbell from Wayne's World for a second there, Simon. It will be mine.
It will be mine. Yeah. I hold out hope. Like Kahlil, he has a great cover that I want that he knows what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And every couple of weeks I probe him like, hey, you want to sell it? Hey, you want to sell it? So maybe with that too.
What do I say, Simon? Beta Ray Bill's about to be in a movie, bro. Like,
yeah, it's Ron Frenz Thor cover with Beta Ray Bill, Eric Masterson Thor, and future Dargo. Yeah. It's a great cover, and I love it, and I want it, and Kahlil has it, and he's not selling it right now.
Which cover was that?
What cover? What's the number? What issue is it?
It's 440. 440. It's
440.
The Thor War. Yes, he's three different Thor guys. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great cover. And I love Ron Frenz too.
Oh, yeah.
I love his art.
No,
Music Soma just said hands off, and he may have a leg up because he called me eye candy earlier, or she called me eye candy. So,
What's a BPS?
What's up?
What kg's BPS?
I think it says BP5.
Oh, hold on. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
I don't know what a BP5 is. No, we were talking.
Yeah, 440. Yeah.
Okay.
440. Yeah, that I love Frenz on Thor, so I know that cover well. So that would be probably a tough one to pry from Kahlil's collection.
But Frenz is another page. I'm also another artist. I'm also on his page every day. I refresh a couple times a day to see if anything new has dropped or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to his representative, and he says that pretty much whenever, I guess, Ron Frenz decides to release something into the wild, that's when they release something. There's no set time or date to it whatsoever. It's just whenever Mr. Frenz has a fancy to it, which is okay. I don't mind. I'm always there checking, and I just got a Thor page the other day of Ron Frenz, and I'll take almost any Thor page I can get from him.
Did you get it from Scott Press?
Catskill Comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know his site's tough because it's like you could say it's a lot like Spencer's, but I know he does update his website, but because it's kind of old school, I don't check it out that often because I can never know when things are getting updated there. And I have looked into crawling his website, but it's complex because he has a really odd way of structuring his pages.
Yeah,
to crawl a website, I need the data, just to have some monochrome of structure, title-ish, and he just kind of fills things out on the page, and there's just I could do it, but I'd spend probably 2 or 3 days trying to figure it out, and so I just don't do it. And so I never visited his site for that reason too. But I did actually go the other day because he still has some Synod artwork there.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah, he still has some stuff. Yeah,
didn't he have some? I think he had some Frenz pencils and Synod inks pieces too. I think I was looking at that. We're still reasonably priced.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't be saying that because I actually thought about going back to look at them. So they'll probably be gone now.
But so now you know that there's no set time schedule whatsoever. It's just whenever Ron Frenz decides to release something, that's when they release it.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill. So it went from "and Bill loves Thor," of course, to "Bill loves Thor" to "Bill is Thor," and I imagine it's because you guys share them flowy locks.
That is a big part of it. And we had I don't even remember what night that was. Oh, it was the Comic Link event where I had, I don't know. I said Thor was my favorite character, and everything kind of derailed after that, where they had me trying to quote Thor, and Mike bought me some kind of a Thor helmet that I haven't gotten in the mail yet. So expect some Thor-related memes in an upcoming Dueling Dealers episode. I can guarantee. Although I'm not built.
I need to refill my flagon of mead. Right. Well.
All right.
I'll get to it. All right.
Yes. And thank you again, Mikhail. I appreciate it. You started an avalanche the other day, so I really appreciated that. Those I mentioned that earlier when Barucci and Wingo made those super comments or whatever I don't even know what they're called because I've never really paid too much attention to it. But
I call them super donations. How about that?
Super donations. There you go. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how much we appreciate that because I guarantee you the goal is to have someone on staff to help me with the production work beginning in June. It's going to mean a great deal to me because I brought Colin on as an editor back in when did I bring him on? Probably June or July. And that's what freed me up to do all the live streams and things. And so, but now I'm at a point where I really need somebody who can help me with some design. So that's my goal, is that by June I'll have be able to afford a full-time person to help me there too. So I can do more work for the dealers and I can do more work on CAF. So every penny definitely helps these days. Cool. But yeah. Oh, you meant it? Yeah, next time. All right. $2.99, not $2.99. All right.
Hey, Simon, we're going to go to the pieces, but what are like a few like holes in your collection that you're like, these are the ones I'm trying to plug up if I can help it. And it's funny, right? When I ask that question, there's that stuff that's, a little harder to obtain, and there's stuff that's maybe a little more possible. So you take out how you want to.
Yeah. So talk about Thor. I have a Thor cover coming from Ed McGuiness in the next couple of days of one of his latest or more recent variants. And I like Ed McGuiness. And I've looked for his stuff, for his Thor stuff, and particularly like on his Hulk run. But that stuff has been scooped up long ago, I imagine. But if I could get those Thor versus Red Hulk pages, that'd be nice. Mark Bagley, ASM, of course. Everyone wants that, apparently. But so do I. Ron Frenz, Thor, of course. Jim Lee, X-Men. I mean, I guess I just like the good stuff, as it were.
It's good for a reason, right? It's the good stuff for a reason. Yeah.
Right.
Or I guess even smaller stuff like, again, X-Man, Nate Gray. Nobody seems to really care about him, which is fine with me because I like the character and I want to collect his art, so I'll do that if I can. I have a few pieces on my page. So I'll keep also getting X-Men pages if I can do that. Moon Knight, I love the character of Moon Knight. So trying to find good pages of that, especially by David Finch when he did that run back in the thousands. I know Finch goes for a premium these days, but I think that might be worth it because he just draws a stellar Moon Knight.
Without question.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think off the top of my head of just artists that I love because there's just some. Tom Grummett. Ruben and I have talked about Grummett before, and I love Superboy. So I'm also looking for Grummett Superboy now, which again puts me at odds with Ruben.
Hey, you talked about how many times he said no to you? Yeah.
Well, like I tell everyone though, at least that's almost, not quite, but almost the only artist that I actually go after. So I'm leaving everybody else to everyone else. So,
That's fair.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, I think of all the things I like. I don't really also necessarily think of just artists. I think of characters. Like what characters do I like? Which leads me to artists. I'm like, oh, I do love those artists. Like Onslaught again. I'm one of the only people who loves Onslaught, maybe. But Andy Kubert is a great artist, and he drew some awesome pages during that time. Superboy Prime, a character that only I and maybe Jeff Johns seems to love, because everyone else thinks he's just horrible. But I love him. But trying to find pages of him by George Perez is probably something of a nightmare.
There's limited quantity though, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I got the Superboy cover that I did of Dark Knight's Metal, whatever, of him fighting the Batman Who Laughs. Because there aren't many covers these days that aren't by, again, Jim Lee or someone from Infinite Crisis that you can get for a nice amount of money. And then you're not going to have to sell a kidney for that. So yeah, I just go for characters that I enjoy, which also happens to coincide with artists that I love.
Yeah.
So does the pricing has gone up dramatically in the last 12 months, and you've come in right in the middle of it. So I would say a lot of collectors, most of us who've been around a while, I think, feel this overwhelming urgency to kind of get pieces that we're looking for now, because if this trend continues, we'll be priced out of those things. I mean, do you feel that sense of urgency yourself when, within the hobby, being a new collector?
Oh, definitely. Again, with like the silk page, or silk cover, I had no idea it was going to go up to $64,000.
And it wasn't even a standard cover; it was the variant, right?
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
go
the
ahead.
variant.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Ruben, and I'm sure I've talked to Kahlil about this. Like I say, oh, I wish I would have started collecting a decade ago or however long ago. But as Ruben will say, even if you did, your resources would be the equivalent would be in art or whatever, or some. Ruben, you described it best as wishing to collect at an earlier date, or being more aware of earlier.
You might want to repeat that, Simon. The last sentence.
No, sometimes Ruben, I say to you, no, I wish that I had collected earlier or started collecting earlier. But even if I had, that doesn't mean I would have had the resources in order to collect the stuff that I wanted to collect. So going into it now, I see prices. I'm like, how are people? What are they doing to get these $100,000 Jim Lee pieces or whatever? Not a cover, mind you, just like maybe a splash page.
Yeah.
Because $100,000, it's easy to be like, oh, just $100,000 when you just see it as like a number or whatever. But to actually have to spend that amount of money, some people that's a home for them. I mean, that is a home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting, Bill. You mentioned that, right? Because, and I think, Simon, you're entering at a time where, so I'm an 80s kid, right? So the nostalgia, the whatever, that's, and I'm in my 40s now, and you know, that stuff's still very important. But I've noticed this new kind of the kids of the 90s, right? So the kids of the 90s, you know, they knew Jim Lee, they knew Silvestri, but we've quickly like kind of, that might be a little too pricey. So we jump to Andy Kubert or Adam Kubert, and you see that kind of happening now when it comes to the X-Men thing, right? So when we've talked, Simon, it's like, yeah, you know, thoughts around that are yes, go do what you need to do on some of that stuff, but on others maybe not so much. It always kind of depends. But I feel like there is kind of a real, you know, 90s focus recently that may not have been there in the recent past.
Yeah.
No.
I love
the 90s are hot.
Yeah. I've learned that recently. The 90s are hot. I would think that like the stuff in the 70s or the 80s would be more popular, because looking at it from a comic book collector's perspective, which is how I went in originally, nobody cares about 90s comics. Well, people are starting to collect these days on like X-Force 1 of all things by Rob Liefeld. It just goes to show the market is insane at the moment. But generally speaking, the 90s get a bad rep in comics. You have all these guys with, not to throw cable onto the bus, but with large pouches on their shoulders and everything, and that's what people think of when they think of the 90s. And so I would think when I first came in that, oh, the 90s, nobody cares. Everyone's going to ignore that, and everyone's just going to go for like the Ross Andrews Spider-Man or the John Romita Sr. stuff, because those stories are not only fantastic, but the art is fantastic. So clearly that's what everyone would want to get. It shows how limited my knowledge was at the time, and still kind of is. But yeah.
But it is true. I think that, and it's been mentioned in the chat as well, that 90s kids are, you know, hitting an age and they have a lot of expendable income, and it's very, very true. I mean, there isn't a dealer out there who wouldn't kill to come into a large cache of 90s artwork, because it is literally the hottest commodity out there right now. You know, they're getting incredible you know, amounts of money, higher than the last couple of years, and it's all been in the last 18 months. So that's
so true, Bill. But have you noticed, like all of you guys, haven't you noticed though that it's basically followed the same trends as comic book collecting has? In other words, you know, I remember in the early 90s, I was wheeling and dealing comic books, and I bought myself this huge cache of 70s books, and nobody wanted them. And I realized after a few years, oh yeah, it's still too soon. It's only been like 15, 17 years, right? But 8 to 10 years later, suddenly, oh, now those 70s Bronze Age books became hot. It's like you gotta kind of wait an entire generation, like a full generation to pass for that next decade to suddenly become hot, you know? Mm-hmm. And because So 70s get hot, for example, or 60s, and then it gets to the point people can't afford it. So people move on. Okay, Bronze Age now. Let's focus on 70s. That stays hot. Everybody goes after that. Remember, Bill, in the early 2000s, all we wanted was 20-cent cover, 70s Marvel cover, 70s.
Exactly.
It was crazy, right? And then eventually that decade peters out, and whoa, the 80s are finally getting hot and in demand now, right? And that's where we've gotten to. It's the 90s turn,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
And that seems to have translated over to the comics. Because I still collect comics. I still pay attention to the market there. And like WandaVision, that's been a big, that's paved the way for a lot of like comics in the 90s or 80s that you wouldn't think to get popular. Like the Scarlet Witch miniseries from the early 90s that nobody ever cared about for 30 years.
Yeah, the 25-cent book, yeah.
Those 25-cent books are now like $50, $100 books. Like, what? Yeah. So I imagine it's like that with art now, only on a much, much larger scale.
It's like trickle-down economics for art, right? Like every time a certain decade's worth of art gets too expensive, people get priced out, but they only have two choices. They either get priced out of the hobby and they leave, which a lot of people in the 2000s did, in the late 2000s, or you stick around and like me, if you have a lot of interests, you kind of like, okay, I can't afford to collect that anymore, but I like so many different characters, so many different artists. So, I'll find something else to collect that's cheaper and more affordable. And I can stay in and I can still have fun,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
you think about, I feel like Spider-Man is so obvious that way, right? Because you had you had the Romita, the Kane, the Andrew, like kind of that. Then you get Todd McFarlane. It starts this new, but then it goes, okay, Todd McFarlane, Eric Larson, Mark Bagley, Sal Buscema. Like I'm not saying down like they're worse artists, but like it kind of trickles.
That trickles down thing.
You know what I mean? To your point, right? I can't do the McFarlane anymore. So who's next? So who next?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Simon said it earlier. With the X-Men. I can't afford this artist's work on X-Men anymore. So okay, we'll move over to Andy Kubert into the 90s, right? And that stuff gets super expensive, and eventually it's okay. Whoever was doing it in the late 90s or into the 2000s, or you know what I mean? It just you keep trickling down as the older stuff gets more expensive.
Right.
It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christopher had a point or a question where if the current hot stuff is the 90s, does that mean the 70s and 80s stuff might be flying under the radar? And I actually, I know there aren't many, but it's surprising. Well, the 80s, I think sometimes I see some stuff that's still a little underpriced, but no, by and large, there aren't many deals to be found out there for things in the 70s and 80s either. It's, and look at modern art too, right? The prices we're seeing on things that are coming out, from current books is skyrocket, right? Yeah, and right. I can tell you, when I first started collecting, I really didn't go for my nostalgia period. I was going for stuff that I was just reading. And I think a lot of collectors go that route. And I think that's what's driving up the prices on the art that's new to the market, that's coming out of the reps' hands, which is, it's tough because I always tell everybody, it's always better to be the second one to buy a piece of artwork than the first one. Because, a lot of people like to buy it first and they pay a little bit of a premium to get it, but you can't really guarantee that page is going to be worth what you bought. To be that first buyer. I'd rather be the second guy when that person who bought it is trying to raise some funds, because they're probably not going to get what they paid for it. And that's not true across the board. A lot of artists, their newer work probably holds their value really well. But I've seen enough times artwork that was bought, say for, I don't even want to throw a price out there because it'd give it away, but like say around $15,000 for a cover. And then the person selling it a year and a half later, and they have to get 12 or 11 or 10 because that $15,000 price was, that's what it was going to cost to get it and be the first one. But it really wasn't going to fetch that same amount on the market for another 10 years, practically, or at least 5. So I see that a lot. So that'd be my advice on on current artwork, is be the second buyer.
Speaking of buying art, of course, I saw on Comic Link recently that I think their upcoming May sale, there's that Eric Larson Amazing Spider-Man page of Spidey fighting Magneto when he had the cosmic powers. And I'm just curious to see how much that goes for, because clearly everyone's going to go for it and everything. I want that page, obviously. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford it, because I'm now thinking, like, I'm trying to be realistic in fact, like, it's probably going to go for $60,000, something like that. I don't know. Which is kind of annoying, because I'm like, why should it be? I want that page, but can't have it.
Just takes two with pockets, man. Right? Just takes two, and then in the last second.
Well, listen, it's like to Chris's comment earlier. About 70s, 80s, might that be flying under the radar? I just wanted to say, well, no. The reason 90s is hot now is because the 70s had its time, then that priced everybody out. So the 80s became hot, and then that got too expensive, and so people are shifting to the 90s. And by the way, even speaking for myself, right? I keep trickling down myself, and I've been doing it since I got in the 90s, to be completely straight. But just a good example, recently I started thinking, okay, I want to collect something that's cheap, okay, cheap. I decided a couple of years ago, I'm going to collect pages from Vigilante, okay, DC, so it's cheaper than Marvel, Vigilante, so it's at best, sort of third tier level type character, right? So I buy myself a couple of pages. They cost me, I think, $139 and $169 a piece. A year goes by. In that year, I haven't seen any pages hit the market. Yeah. Suddenly, a couple of pages hit the market. This is a few months ago at an auction house. One of the pages goes for $1,800. Another lot had 2 pages in it that went for around $1,500 or $1,600. So that's $700-800 a piece. This is for Vigilante, the DC series. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's nothing that's being spared in the market anymore, Yeah. So even
Ruben, Vigilante is hot now. He's becoming popular again. No, seriously, he is.
But you get my point.
He's gonna be in the Peacemaker show, so now that makes sense, because people are gonna.
You get my point, though, right? You get my point. Get it. The fact that even when you're purposely trying to chase the stuff that nobody else typically wants, right? Okay, I'll aim for the third tier type character that nobody cared much about, other than as maybe a little guest star here and there with the Teen Titans, whatever. And still, even that, I got 2 pages at fair prices before, boom, it just exploded, and now it's like I'm priced out of that market. I'm not going to start paying $800 or $1,500 for Vigilante pages. You know what I mean? So
Well, Ruben, you mentioned to me, right? So I collect the Black Panther stuff. You're like, I remember I used to have this Black Panther stuff for cents on the dollar, and it would sit. Yeah.
I mean, but that just shows how much things have changed over time. But I mean, a better example that people can relate to a little bit more, like Spider-Man, right? So late 90s, early 2000s. Okay. In those days, the market was so much smaller that when it came to Spider-Man, nobody cared about anything other than pages from Amazing Spider-Man. And everybody wanted desperately to get Amazing Spider-Man pages, but there was pretty much none of them on the market. Now, everybody knows Mike Berkey had all that stuff locked up for the most part, and which is fine because he got in early. Good for him, right? The thing is, back then, I used to be able to put, for example, Web of Spider-Man pages, Alex Saviuk. I put those on my site at $125, right? And those would be, I'm talking action pages with Spidey, in 5 out of 6 panels, that kind of stuff. And it would take me on average 3 months to sell, let's say, a dozen of those pages, right? And all of a sudden, nowadays, I mean, if you got that type of quality Web of Spider-Man page by that artist, I mean, they're $1,200, and they'll sell like that. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't even have to put them on your website. You can send them into an auction house, let them do all the work. You'll still get your $1,200 minus commission. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's just amazing. It's amazing. Nobody used to care about Marvel Team Up. Nobody used to care about Web. Even Spectacular Spider-Man, Jim Mooney, Al Milgram pages. I couldn't give that stuff away. I mean, I would sell it, but like I said, slowly over time, And now that stuff, the stuff that I used to sell from those books at like Spectacular Spider-Man, Milgram Mooney stuff, I used to sell them at like $125, $150. and with the Black Cat appearances, and in the last 2-3 years, I mean, those pages sell for $2,500 to $3,500.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm still looking for one of those. Yeah, Al Milgrom, Spectacular Spider-Man.
I'm happy though, because what that speaks to is just how much the market has grown, which is really good, because it makes it, a healthy market is the most important thing. You don't want just a tiny little group of collectors who are always the same guys buying everything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Hey, Bill, real quick, as far as, like you said, being second, there's Trad Moore, right? Being second is probably, that doesn't work out so well. There's a handful of guys, right?
Yeah, that's the exception to the rule.
I think for the most part, I agree with you. But yeah, there's definitely some exceptions. And I'll say, I think, Simon, you and I have talked about this, is so all else being equal, right? Is it a cover? Is it a splash? Is it a pinup? Is it a whatever? And so I've said a lot of my sweet spots, Simon, right, have been like a semi-splash. Maybe it's a half splash. Maybe it's got a big POW image, but there's some folks that only want the full, right? So the fact that you kind of, remove them from some of the stuff you're looking at, I think personally can help, especially when it comes to some of that 70s, 80s stuff we were talking about.
Yeah. Speaking of which, quickly, Bill, you mentioned today the Ryan Stegman King in Black cover sold. And I wanted that desperately, but that was all sold in one massive bundle, which
is for other people. Did you say today?
He just, Bill mentioned it earlier today. But the King in Black #4 cover. But all the King in Black was sold at once, I think, to my knowledge.
Is that the series that Felix sold, like, as a complete series for five issues?
Yeah. And I have my own thoughts on that matter, but that's for other people to discuss.
Well, that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
Right. No, it was sold complete. I did forget to mention that when I was showing the scans, unfortunately. It crossed my mind after I passed that one by. But yeah, that's selling complete. I mean, I get the reasons for it. I've talked with some of the dealers that sell complete, and I've always said, just so you know, because I'm a collector too, and I might not be a collector for those books, but I've always said this to them, that I feel that selling books complete is not good for your customer base, because you're gonna have 50, 60 people that are after a page from that book, and when you sell it complete, you're limiting, you're upsetting a segment of your base. And I get it. There's an ease of transaction, and there's some prestige from allowing a collector to buy the full book. But I think at the end of the day, as a collector, I'd prefer those dealers, more than often than not, would break those books up so that everybody could have a chance to own it. But again, I understand the reason behind doing it too. So it's tough. But as a collector, though, and I do, and I've said that to several art reps that do sell complete, that I don't agree with it, and I just think it's bad for business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
can I follow up on that, Bill?
Well, we got to get back to Simon so we could look at his art and
quickly, Ruben, quickly.
No problem. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You can finish.
I just wanted to make a quick follow up to that. Just wanted to say, as you were speaking, I was like, oh God, it's so true. It's so true. Look, since I started dealing back in the 90s, right from the beginning, my whole theory was customer service. I just want to, I've got to compete with other people, so to sell stuff. So it's all about customer service. And I had opportunities over the years through Mike Perkins, who, as most people know, I represent, to sell a few issues complete, right? And it's exactly what you said, Bill. For me, right, it's like somebody would ask, hey, you think I could get that next issue of this title complete? So there's two frames of mind. The first thing that comes to mind is, oh, wow, man, I could sell the whole thing, guaranteed sale. I don't have to do any work, right? And every page is sold. Fantastic. But on the flip side, I'm going to piss off a lot of people, right? Not only do you piss off a lot of people, I'm going to piss off the regulars. Those are the ones that really, worried me. The guys that sort of would pick a page or two from every previous issue from that series, right, that Mike was drawing, right? And if I suddenly say, oh, no, on this issue, you can't have any because this guy wants it, I don't know. I knew that it would be bad blood. You know, even if they don't admit it, I know there would be hard feelings there. And in the end, to date, I've never sold an issue complete yet, just because I'm not willing to risk pissing people off. I'm not saying, you know, people who do sell them complete, you know, more power to them. Again, there's pros and cons to it. I just prefer, I would rather err on the side of, you know, offering it to other people, even if it means that, okay, you sell 50 to 75% of the book into, you know, to individual collectors, and the rest of them go unsold. I'd rather do that than just make one person happy, you know? That's all I want.
If I just put my collector hat on, for me, it's kind of, I'm really not neither here nor there, right? Because I get the points, but I'm also, I guess, still at the point in terms of collecting where I don't feel like I'm necessarily missing out, right? And I guess if you feel that that's the case as a collector, that's I guess, you know, what you think, but I'm not sure if it has to be either or, right? I think maybe every issue sells complete. That's tough, but here and there.
Oh no, I don't have a problem with the practice. I'm just saying that when, you know, it's just, again, as a collector, that you know, we could talk. Well, I'm not gonna, you know, at any rate.
This is a whole conversation for another time. Yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah, Simon's art. Simon's
exactly.
art.
Simon's art. All right, Simon. I've got 12 pieces queued up.
Okay.
So let's see. And I don't think I've got them in any particular order, but I know we talked about this first one already a little bit.
Yeah, the Gary Frank Action Comics 1027. I love that cover. I've gotten a huge reception on it, positive reception. I saw in the previews that day, scoured the internet for Gary Frank's people, found them, emailed them. Turns out the page was somewhere in Italy with him. And because of COVID, he couldn't get it out in months. Like I think that whole process from start to finish for me to have it in hand took about maybe 4 to 5 months, if not longer. But I love it. It was worth it. I got in the mail and like, finally. And then it's Superboy, both Superboys, but Connor Kent, who I know Ruben also loves. And that's one of the reasons I got, because you don't get many modern covers with Superboy, with Connor Kent Superboy. But it's just a beautiful piece overall. Not much I can say about it besides just his Supergirl is fantastic. His Superman looks like almost Christopher Reeve Superman. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a beauty. Definitely.
Yeah.
And no, we're not going to go to midnight. We're not going to go to midnight. I saw that comment. I promise. I have to be off by 11 or I'm turning into a pumpkin tonight. 11 Eastern. So everybody knows, 11 Eastern, not Central or Pacific.
We've been warned ahead of time, everyone.
That's
Don't worry
right.
about it.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's get another one here.
All right. So yeah, that's the Mark Bagley Spidey piece I bought. First piece I bought technically over on eBay. I saw it. I'm like, I love this cover. Well, not cover. I love this page. I love the issue itself. It's a great story. You have Venom, Spider-Man, and this awesome splash of Silver Sable's Wild Pack. What's not to love? Like any Venom that I'm finding these days by Bagley is just going for crazy money. And while it's not like a full body image of him, it's still an impressive facial piece of it. Yeah. So I was really happy when I got that.
That was definitely a keeper. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's got that distinct Bagley Venom 2 profile shot right on the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. No, I love that panel at the bottom is awesome.
Yeah, I found it over on eBay. I just like bought it that day, really.
So is it buy it now?
Yeah, there's that option too. So I bought it then.
Nice.
Very good. Let's see. Here we go.
Yeah, so I haven't read, I think, any shot over the bat. Nor was I really familiar with the artist, but this is from a Comic Link auction, but I saw this page and I read it and I read it again and again and again. And you just really get into the psychology of what it means to be a superhero according to Batman. And I thought it was it really resonated with me because rarely do you hear anyone in comics describe it as it's described here. It's just such a poignant page and conveys so much in just 3 panels. And I just love it. Whenever I look at it, I just read it from start to finish. And I always feel like I'm taking away something new from it. Like Superhero Theory 101, really, as presented by Batman. Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I
Great
agree
inks.
with
great inks too. So stark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, then after I got this, I went online and just read the issue. And the interior art in all its colors doesn't do this page actual justice.
Hey, artist.
So I think,
who's the artist?
oh yeah, Gulacy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gulacy,
sorry, I should have said,
yeah. Great job, great art.
Kahlil, you don't recognize Gulacy's stuff? You're not familiar with it?
Well, Chris Snork asked, and I thought so, but I thought I would ask. Yeah, it's in the chat there.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Out of curiosity, Simon, who did the? I'm curious about who did the inks on that story. You know?
I don't remember off the top of my head, no. But it is one of those pages, like with a lot of comics, that when you read the colored version doesn't do it justice at all. The black and
that's
white
why I got
ink is
the original art. For me, I never wanted to see the colors. So. No offense to colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just appreciate the line art. You know.
Sometimes I feel like I'm even missing something or something's lost when you see just like the finished colored product.
Yeah.
Depending on the artist, sometimes the colored product's amazing.
Yeah, the color can add a lot, absolutely. But when you want to see the line art, it's the best way to see it. Is obviously without the color, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, here we go. Cable, Cable 30. I love this cover in part because we have X-Men, Cable, and Exodus on the cover, and this is one of the covers I really wanted. I saw it on Comic Link. Well, actually, I did a search on CAF at some point. I finally found the guy who had this, along with a couple other Cable covers. And I messaged him and I said, "Are you selling these?" He said, "No, but I'm shipping. Or the folks at Comic Link are coming to get them. Or I'm shipping them out to Comic Link." And I said, "Can you please just keep me up to let me know when you send them out?" Or whatever. And he did. And so I waited anxiously for Comic Link to finally post them, and they did. And the moment I saw it, I'm like, I gotta have it. That's one of those things that I just needed to have. I just love these characters, and it's rare that you see them together. Yeah.
That's cool.
The follow-up issue.
Right.
I actually got this cover before the previous cover. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to get 30, but I got 31. I was very, very delighted about that. I love the issue featuring just two of them just slugging it out, in part because X-Man is just, his life is just crap, and he just feels like he's misunderstood, and Cable's like, I recognize that part of myself, and I want to try and reach out to him. It's a really phenomenal issue, I think, both in art and in writing, and a must-read for Cable and X-Men fans, because they're essentially, they call each other brothers in a way, and they kind of are from different realities, so that's just how they identify themselves, and they have a very brotherly talk. But anyway, I just love that page, and I look at it all the time.
No, great Scott Hanna inks on that, on both the covers too, right? Yeah, I love Scott's work.
Yeah. I messaged Scott a couple of times on Facebook just to see if he signed anything else of Cable or anything. And no, not right now.
Doesn't he have, he has like the number like 1, 2, or 3, like, I guess, generally accepted volume in terms of pages he's inked, I think.
He has a lot.
Yeah, he's like way up there. Yeah.
Right, as far as being at the top. I think
You
he
mean,
mentioned
do you mean in his career?
in his career.
Yeah, like how many pages has he inked from in his whole career? Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't checked myself. I have no way of knowing, but I saw an interview with him.
Yeah.
And he was claiming that, I don't know, I guess he counted or however you compared to other inkers. I don't know how you do that, but he was claiming that that I think he says he feels he has the record. So I was like, really? I mean, I know he's done a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would have guessed him out of all people. But then again, who would it be, right? But he's definitely.
I wouldn't have guessed either.
Right?
But then you see how many boxes in terms of pencilers he's checked.
Yeah, no,
and
yeah.
Even in that 90s time frame, it's a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I did get a commission from him recently of Spider-Man and Nightwing.
Whoa, commissions now, Simon. Wow.
I get lots of commissions too.
Branching out.
Yeah.
Well, I did commissions first.
But yeah,
it's very nice. He's a great artist in all regards, inking, drawing, everything.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, there's a Jim Lee piece that you had spoke about earlier.
Yeah. My first Jim Lee piece. I saw this. This is probably one of my first comic bank auctions, if not my first comic bank auction. And I was just looking for. Wasn't even looking for this page in particular. I wasn't even looking for Jim Lee in particular. But I saw it, and I'm like, I love that story. I love Jim Lee. I love these characters. It ticks off all the boxes. So I got it, and I'm like, wow, I actually won this. And the price was pretty reasonable for a Jim Lee page featuring Batman of all people. So I'm going to keep hopefully adding to my Jim Lee collection. But I think this was a good place to start. I'm super happy with it.
That's great.
Sorry, my
Bill is speechless.
Yeah, I was speechless. Sorry about that. Let's see. This is a great cover, by the way.
Yeah, New
That's
Warriors,
awesome.
Mark Bagley.
Yeah.
So far, that's the most I spent on a cover. And I remember talking to Ruben about this in great detail, in part because I had an option to buy either this or the Spider-Man when he gets the Phoenix.
25,
whatever. Yeah, Spider-Man 25. Yeah. Also by Bagley, so I could get one or the other. And it had to come down to which I thought meant more to me. I love Spider-Man, and I really examined it, and when I really talked to Ruben in depth about it, there's not much going for that Spider-Man cover. You have a couple heads on the other side.
Floating
Spider-Man, floating heads. And you have Spider-Man, but he's not even not really detailed that much. He's just kind of like glowing. But here, New Warriors, you have all of them, full body against these other dudes. It's just an amazing cover, and I love it.
And you have the original team. Every member of the original team, right there on the side. I think that's big. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And truth be told, my New Warriors knowledge is not as great as many others who grew up with New Warriors. I just bought the New Warriors omnibus yesterday. I'm going to start diving into that. I've only read a few issues of New Warriors here and there, truth be told. But I love the art. I love Bagley's art, and I like the characters individually. Firestar, I like her appearances in Spider-Man. Justice, I like him. Night Thrasher, he's great. I was introduced, I guess, with these guys again with Thor, Mighty Thor, when they fought the Juggernaut. Right. And they've all mingled Spider-Man outside of just one or two times. He's like their friend. So I've read lots of Spider-Man, so I recognize these guys, even if I haven't read New Warriors. So I thought this was a great cover to have, and I'm really pleased that it's in my collection.
Wow, I can't believe it. That's like my favorite kind of concept for a cover is just having two teams going straight at each other. I mean, there's so many classic covers with that same layout. You highlighted
Mark Levy saying the same thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What was the most famous one? I think the one that we all think about was that which X-Men 99 or was it 100? Which is the one? There's
the one with Professor X in the background.
Yeah, that's one. I want to say that's 100 or 99. Yeah.
It's one or the other. I can't even. I'm not even sure right now. But no, that's a good one. There's a couple Avengers covers clearly with the same kind of layout. I mean, by Buscema. So nope.
Yeah.
Very classic set.
Never
I'm gonna keep trying to get more Mark Bagley New Warriors if I can, because there's some great interior pages too. I was the other day reading New Warriors. I forget the exact issues, in the teens when they fight Terax alongside the Fantastic Four.
Oh.
And those are amazing issues.
Thanks, Dino.
Fantastic battle sequences. And that's art that I think is, for me personally, is really worth collecting. I saw some of those pages on CAF. And one of those days, again, hopefully I'll be able to get stuff of that.
It's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You picked up some Thunderbolt stuff too when he did that
I
long
did.
run in the 90s, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of action
from you in
stuff
particular.
too, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know somebody who's got a lot of Thunderbolts Bagley art for sale.
I love Bagley Thunderbolts.
So yeah, well, yeah,
Does Michael still have all that, Bill?
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of
You heard
it.
it there.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't even get to tell you. Well, okay. I mean, I heard the story, but yes, he still has it. So
Okay.
I think a couple hundred pages or so. So
Okay. I'm only surprised simply because I remember a few years back when Will had tons of it on his website. So I thought he had done like the whole, got rid of a whole ton of the stuff for him. So I figured, okay, Michael's out of that stuff now,
Right. No, well, I think there's a long story in that, and I don't know the whole story. I just know that, like many things over at Mike's house, things kind of get lost, and 10 years later they turn up again. So I think that is a little bit of what happened over there. So yeah, knowing that, I'm making some notes, Simon, about things that I might be able to help you find.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah, you never know. I'm very helpful, right, Kahlil?
You are very helpful. Yes, I did. Bill just helped me out with something pretty recently. I'm pretty happy with. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Bill. Yeah, Mark Bagley.
Mark, you got it. No, I'm happy to help whenever
I just want to answer Chris Snorick. He always considered Bagley a worker or journeyman.
Yeah.
Most people obviously don't share my opinions. Yeah, look, I do actually know, Chris, a lot of guys who do share your opinion. My feeling from what I've sort of experienced over my entire time in the hobby is he's got a subset of fans, right? A large one, large group, but there is quite a sizable amount of people that don't really care for his stuff. It's kind of like either or. So you'd be surprised, but he is very prolific. He's always been very prolific because he's super fast. But that doesn't necessarily make you a journeyman in this industry. You know what I mean? It's just he's a really solid draftsman, storyteller, the works. So yeah, he's prolific, but not Vinnie Coletta prolific, where he was so fast, but he hacked it out at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's quality work most of the time. So
I agree.
Okay, so more Bagley, Night Mask. There's nothing really inherently memorable or important about this page in particular, but it is Bagley before ASM. He only did a couple issues of Night Mask. This is some of his earliest work, and you see the foundations for his Peter Parker here, which I really appreciate and love. Night Mask is kind of the cult character that most people don't know or care about. And only in passing have I started to develop an appreciation for him. But really, once I learned that Bagley did Night Mask pages, I wanted them. So there was someone on CAF, oh Lord, I forget his name. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. But he had a few and he offered them to me. I said, yes, I'll take them. And I did. And so this page, of the 3 or 4 Night Mask pages I have, this one I thought was the best representation of just early Bagley. Yeah.
It's cool.
That is a good one.
Personally important. Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you a question, right? So real quick, you're in acquisition mode, right? So you've been buying, you're looking for stuff, right? So I know that most collectors, you get to a place where I'm still trying to get, but I'm trying to get to that piece that's maybe hasn't been possible in the past. And the way that I can do that is to parlay, right? Is to move some things to do that. Have you jumped into thinking about that yet, or are you more kind of trying to still acquire and less around maybe moving something to get something else?
Yeah, there's a part of me that realizes somewhere down the road I'll probably part with some pieces that I have now. I'm doing, as I've talked to Ruben about this also, selling comics. I never once thought in my wildest dreams that I'd ever part with my comic book collection. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to keep these till the day I die. I'll never sell them as long as I live. But no, now I'm getting them slabbed and selling them and using that money to buy art.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, okay.
Because art is rare, comics aren't really. You never really think about that when you're not really in the art field. You're just like going after comics. Like, oh, this comic is rare. No, it's not. Comic books are not rare. They're barely worth the money the pages are printed on. But so I am aware that later down the road for larger pieces, if and when they come my way, or maybe I'll not necessarily grow tired, but I feel like I'll have appreciated a certain page long enough that I think somebody else might appreciate it as I did, or more than I did. And when that day comes, I'll do it. I'll use those funds to buy more art.
Yeah.
Just fuel the addiction, really.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty typical story. Wouldn't you guys say?
Oh, without question. Yeah. I sold off most of my comic book collection as well. But that makes me think as well, and I've said this before, that you see the prices on comic books today, which is still an astronomical amount higher than the original art. That means that tells me that there's a lot of room for growth and making the art even more valuable once people start realizing that. Because if a comic can go to $2.5 million, and there are a couple of them out there at that, I just feel like art has, we're seeing a boom right now, but I really think that it has a lot more room to go higher. And we really, and again, that's what's really been making me more anxious about wanting to get some pieces now, because in 10 years, who knows where the hobby's going to be at, but I don't think it's not going down. It's only going to continue to rise.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Bill. That's another conversation, of course, for another time.
That's right.
But it's so true. It's so true. Like there's so many factions now, right? Or I should say, two big factions, right? With the the bubbles, it's gonna burst. And there's us now. And I used to be a bubble guy many years ago. And there's now we're like, no. This is gonna continue. This is not a bubble.
Yeah, it's wishful thinking right now, but it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Well, to your point too, Bill, what's interesting too is that you feel like you can only grow as a respected part of art, right? And in general, right? Like, thinking kind of like, this is kid stuff, or, funny books, or, this is fine art. I think, that's been changing, and it probably will continue,
Yeah. Oh, without question. I mean, I do. I think the more people appreciate it for being fine art is going to continue to drive the prices up as well, and which is good. I mean, I think it's great for the hobby. At the end of the day, I think it brings more attention to it, and it's a medium that hasn't, that only a few select people like us have appreciated it for being what it is. And so I did. At the end of the day, I think it's great. It's unfortunate, but it's great at the same time.
Yeah. So keep acquiring like a madman, Simon.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, we have 4 more pieces of art to look at.
Sorry. Yes.
No,
was that many? Go.
No. Final countdown. That's right.
All right. So Resurrection Man. So I was introduced to Resurrection Man when the New 52 line started, and that's been the only Resurrection I read. However, when I saw this for auction, something about it just hit me. Just gothic nature, the Frankenstein-esque horror theme you have here. It's just beautiful. It's almost beautifully disgusting in a way, because you see all these like organs and jars and everything. And he's clearly waking up from something very unpleasant to someone who some would consider unpleasant to wake up to, Batman. But it's just a beautiful page. And I remember winning it and how almost nobody bid on this. Now this is one of my most commented on pieces, and it keeps on getting more and more views each day. People seem to love this cover. And I think if it went up for auction now, people would probably go for it more. But again, this went for nothing, and it's gorgeous. Yeah. It's just so haunting, visually haunting, but you see something new every time you look at it. And you just can't take your eyes away from it, I think. It's not even a Batman cover. It's not even a Resurrection Man cover. It's a mixture of everything in there. And also, I haven't even read this issue of Resurrection Man, but I feel like I don't even need to read it to know what's going on and what the story is going to be about. Yep. Which I think is the mark of a great piece of art. Yeah.
And Rick just mentioned it, right? We talked about that. It's definitely got a Reitson-esque vibe, which is a great thing. Yeah.
Very horror-themed vibe, which I guess for Resurrection Man, a guy who has to die in order to get new abilities, it fits.
Agreed.
But to wake up and essentially on an operating table, there's nothing worse that can happen to someone, really.
Right.
No, I love it.
I'm not a Batman collector, but I'm an art appreciator, and that's one of my favorite pieces that you got. For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's one of those pieces that when you see just the thumbnail mixed in with other thumbnails, whether it's on a search or you go into your gallery, your eye gravitates to it, and it's part of that Reitson feel, but it just has an impact to it. Right. And I know. I mean, I remember when I first saw it, I had to look at it because I didn't recognize it, and I could tell whatever I was going to end up looking at was going to be a beautiful piece of art. So yeah.
So this one, Kahlil sent me, or I purchased off him. I like Ryan Stegman, and as I've talked to Kahlil about, I can't really buy his Venom pages, if only because people just scoop them up immediately, and it's impossible to get any of them. But Bill, for your notes, I'm looking for Ryan Stegman Venom pages. But anyway, I love the Scarlet Spider stuff. I think it's a great series. I love Kane as a character. And I really enjoyed this series. So when Kahlil offered this up, I was like, I have to get it. I like Kraven the Hunter. I like Kane. I like just the story. I love Spider-Man. Any Spider-Man, really. So yeah, I'm just very pleased with this page or this cover. My only regret is that you don't really get to see Kraven's head, because that's just not included in the final art either.
That's what I actually like about it. I find the mystery of the camera angle.
That's right.
Placed perfectly, so you know who that is. You don't need to see his head. You know who it is. I like that.
When you think art, right? I mean, you want it to be aesthetically pleasing for what it is. It's the art. But what's the purpose of a cover, right? Especially with back in the day, is to make you pick it up and want to see what's inside, right? So I kind of still have that lens when I think about like cover art. And to your point, Ruben, I think this kind of worked that way. And yeah, that white space, that's where the banner for the title lettering goes.
Yep. Yeah. 6 minutes to go.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ruben.
I'm getting like nervous because he's gonna kick us off at the last.
I wouldn't do that. I would not do that.
So here we have Ultimate Spider-Man. I forget what number is this issue? 83. I forget.
It is 83. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I forget it's the first appearance of Ultimate Moon Knight. First appearance. It might not be. I don't care if it is or not. Point is, I love this cover. It's Bagley, but it's also my first cover without inks, which I was very unfamiliar with. I talked to Ruben extensively about this, about inked covers versus non-inked covers, because for me, the idea of an ink cover is like a complete cover. But when you just have a pencil cover, I used to think there's something incomplete about that. That feeling's obviously changed, but because I bought this and I love it, you just see the line work in such great detail, featuring two of my favorite Marvel characters, probably my two favorite Marvel characters, Spider-Man and Moon Knight. So when I saw this go up for auction, I had to get it. And again, it didn't go for much, which I was very surprised by, because it's full body Moon Knight, full body Spidey by a hot artist.
Just goes to show good deals, good stuff at fair prices can still be found if you're vigilant enough,
Yeah. So I look at this cover relatively often, and I just love it. I think this will be the first of many just penciled covers, because I'm developing a taste for them. And I can get more Bagley Ultimate Spidey covers. I'll do that.
Right.
Yeah,
I think it
see
depends.
a lot more.
I think it depends, right? That's how I feel in terms of pencil only. Some nice, but he finishes those covers, like he renders them, right? I mean, on his other stuff where he's inked, not so much. So that cover has a nice depth, and I always like how, the Moon Knight cape is like a crescent moon, right? It's it's always kind of cool the way they affect,
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, you see it more and more often. With the digital inks done, that we see more penciled covers and even interiors these days. Whereas maybe five years ago we didn't see it as often. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think I've ever purchased a pencil only cover or even interior as of yet. But it's definitely cool. I always like seeing the pencil pieces. That's one of the things, like with Paulo Rivera, with his father inking him, and they're in two different places in the country. It's always was cool to see Paulo's pencils and his blue line work, and then to see his father's inks on another page. I loved having both pieces of art and appreciating both of them for what they were. But seeing Paulo's work in pencil is just phenomenal. It's a cool part of the process.
Yeah.
And here is the last. Oh, go ahead.
We'll have to talk another time about. I hear multiple schools of thought about the newer process of pencils on one board and inks on another board. That seems to be happening.
Yeah, that's a
series of episodes.
I mentioned it. I mentioned it as a yeah.
Well, we should write that down. That would be a good one to talk about sometime, because yes, I think it might be one of the more contentious and well-attended conversations.
I'll do that with you, Kahlil, like on a weekly basis. I'll keep talking.
Ruben has so much to say about that.
That's right, brother. That's right. Why do you think I mentioned it?
All right, last piece, and we did talk about this a little bit earlier, but let's get this up here.
Yeah, this is, I feel, in a very iconic. I don't really go for iconic pages as well, because usually they're really expensive. But this is about as iconic as you get when it comes to non-John Byrne 90s Wonder Woman. The introduction of her new suit, I guess, as it were. Deodato is great. My partner loves Wonder Woman. So when we saw it, we're like, we have to have it. Well, I have to have it, really. But it's just a phenomenal image. It's just powerful, dynamic, and despite her being necessarily a metal, whatever she's wearing, there's something just intrinsically 90s about it, but just something beautiful about it too. And again, it's another page that when I saw it go up for auction, I thought, oh, this is going to be one of those things that everybody knows about. It's one of the most, again, iconic Wonder Woman pages out there. So it's going to go for insane money. It didn't. It went for such money. And I don't want to make it all about how much it cost, but again, I was just stunned. I was shocked that nobody really cared about this. Something that seminal to the character, really. Yeah.
Autumn Burn says her star earrings are so wonderfully 90s.
They are wonderfully 90s, and they're just
absolutely
a small detail. It's a small detail,
They sure are.
But it's so well drawn. Everything about it. Deodato is just such a fantastic artist, and so in everything he does. And even though this is some of his earlier work, it's just as great as his more modern stuff.
Good point.
It's on that back end of lettering, right? The actual sound effects, like on the board, right? Yeah. That's about to stop after this. Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel the power of a kick. You get wham. it deserves a wham for sure.
Intrinsically 90s is right too. Yeah. You know, when you think about her costume, the wham, the full splash, the border, you know, all that. And the star earrings, of course.
And the star. No, that is a great one. And Diodati, he's one of my favorite artists as well. So
yeah, I'm always looking for a lot of his more modern stuff, like some of his Moon Knight stuff, his Dark Avenger stuff, because there's so much great art in there, and he's constantly just doing various comics left and right. So there's always going to be like he just keeps turning it out, and good for him.
He's been around for so long. Question, but time's running out.
What's your question? Quickly,
I just want to know because you said, Bill, you know, you love him.
Yeah.
Just curious, for any of you to answer, do you prefer the 90s stuff? Is that what's more appealing to your eyes? Or that style that he came up with like in the 2000s where it was, well, you probably know what I'm talking about, but he was only doing it in really super dark pencils, tight stuff though. On Hulk, that was some of the stuff.
Right. For me, more the 90s.
Okay.
Certainly. Yeah, that would be my sweet spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Though I am impressed. I am impressed with a lot of his the shadow, like lighting work he does on a lot of the more recent stuff, Ruben. Yeah, I think a lot of that is great. And I think that just comes as getting better over time, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love his work. I always keep an eye out for it. I just saw recently he has some stuff on Comic Link, some of his Elektra stuff, which the series itself reads okay, but the art is, again, just great. Elektra just as bombastic as you could want. Kicking butt.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And two things I wanted that's kind of unrelated to our conversation, but I got emailed about during the show. So I don't think Jason is watching anymore, but I think I know what the search issue is that you mentioned earlier, that because somebody else emailed me about it. So I'm going to address that. And Ryan Barrett, I did fix your premium membership that you paid me for that I screwed up upgrading your account. So if you're still in here, I apologize. I haven't been able to email you yet. Take care of that. So just some cleaning house around here when I look at this stuff.
Interrupting the show, it's such a great way to avoid having to type out an email. That's awesome.
I know. Well, I saw Ryan chatting earlier, and I was like, it just wasn't the opportune time to say something to him. Yeah. But I make mistakes every day. I've made mistakes upgrading you a few times, Ruben, with those accounts. With those two accounts of yours, and I pretty much did the exact same thing to Ryan. So I make mistakes quite often.
I never hold it against you.
But Simon, so I've noted on my calendar that we're going to bring you back in a year and see if your perspective on the hobby has changed at all. Hopefully Kahlil and Ruben will also want to be involved in that conversation, because that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll have much more to show you by then. I just posted something a couple hours ago. The symbiote Spider-Man cover.
I saw that.
I have a couple other things coming in this week that I'll be posting as well.
Cool.
Well, I linked to your gallery in the description and in the chat, so I hope people check out everything that you've got in there, and certainly the new pieces that you've recently added. And anybody who's premium should follow Simon's gallery, as well as Ruben's and Kahlil's as well, and mine. Not that I post a lot, but follow us all so you can get updated when we're adding new art. Kahlil is always adding incredible pieces into his CAF gallery. He's been featured numerous times. So, someone's going to be selling it. Dino says sells a kidney next year, but gets his grail.
Yeah, right.
You got two kidneys. Why not, right?
Exactly. You got to buy the art somehow.
He says it with a straight face.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, listen, it's been a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this. We had to postpone this chat a few weeks back, and I'm glad that we could reschedule it. And again, we're going to do this again in a year. And, and again, thank you for all three of you for taking the time tonight to be a part of this latest Comic Art Fans update.
Bill.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Bill.
If you could just quickly highlight the fourth to last D Tondro message. Yeah, that's the one.
This is one of the best live streams I've ever gotten to watch as a new collector. It was awesome. This is great. I mean, I have said this many times that I'm getting a lot of emails about all the live streams we do, and the majority of them are from new collectors, and it's just this is their gateway into collecting and meeting other people, and there's a camaraderie that's forming around this, and I can't tell you how proud I am to be a part of it. And CAF was always that, and I didn't even know it. And now we're doing these live streams, and people are feeling it even more, and they're making connections. And I couldn't be happier that this is working out. So really, it's Wild Bill is the man. Okay, but anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. Again, I'll be out there on Sunday.
Alfredo, Dino, Alfredo again. Bye guys. Thanks for watching.
Oh, subscribe. Yes, please subscribe to the channel and click that bell thing and say whatever it says, notifications or whatnot. That way you definitely won't miss any future shows that we do, because I can guarantee you there's definitely going to be probably another show in the schedule. There's a few people we've been talking to about that, and I hope to finalize some stuff maybe on Saturday. Jason. So we'll see how that goes. And
Bill, I just want to quickly thank everyone in the comments who's being so nice for this whole thing. I've been reading the comments to the side, but just everyone throughout this whole conversation. Everyone's been very inviting, which has been true to my experience the past 9 months or whatever. And they continue right now just saying such wonderful things. So thank you guys for inviting me in and letting me be part of this awesome community.
Yep, and I'll tell you what. Here's another thing. I've been told by a few people who I'm sure don't watch these chats. They're like, "Your chats are too long. An hour and a half or 2 hours. We're never going to sit through those. And why don't you do them offline and then edit them?" And I said, "Well, then you're clearly not watching live, because it's all about the interaction with the people who are watching the show. That's what makes it fun, and that's what makes us keep talking, because of the interaction with the people who are watching it. So, but I get that a lot from people who I know have never watched a single episode, whether it was over or live, because that's the most fun is chatting with the people who are in here and participating. So,
yeah, so 100%.
Yep. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good evening.
All right.
And